Hello and welcome to another MikroWin tutorial. This tutorial is about entering or importing metadata such as sample IDs, remarks or dilution factors. We will use our ELISA example as a demonstration. Here the layout of the plate is already predefined and we can concentrate on entering the metadata. First, we select the desired rack position with the mouse. We now have the option of simply entering the sample IDs using the keyboard. The input is terminated by pressing the Enter key and the next possible position in the rack is automatically selected. We can now start entering the next ID directly. If a barcode scanner is connected, it emulates the keyboard and automatically transfers the scanned barcode. As a rule, the scanner also automatically emulates the Enter key after the scanning process so that all sample IDs can be entered using only the scanner. If several positions are selected in the rack, the text entered is assigned to all selected positions. If the text input ends with a number, the software increases this number by 1 before it is assigned to the next position. This makes it easy to implement consecutive numbering. The data for the remark column can be entered in the same way using the keyboard. Here, for example, the test designation TPHA or whether the sample may have been lipemic. Another option for specifying metadata is the copy/paste option. Here, for example, data from a spreadsheet is copied to the clipboard and pasted into MikroWin. Let's demonstrate this once. To do this, let's delete the two columns and switch to a spreadsheet program. Here we have already prepared sample IDs, test names and dilution factors. Let's simply take the column with the sample IDs, select it and copy the whole thing to the clipboard. Then we switch back to MikroWin and click on the header of the column with the sample IDs. This selects all the fields in this column. Now right-click on one of the selected fields and select Paste from the context menu. This pastes the clipboard data into the corresponding column. Done. We proceed in the same way for the test designation. Although the same identifier is specified for all items, this is sufficient for the demonstration. So here we copy the data from the spreadsheet again, then switch back to MikroWin, select the corresponding column, click on Paste in the context menu and then we have also transferred our remarks. Finally, I would like to show you another option. To do this, we first delete our metadata again. We now want to read in sample IDs from a text file, for example a CSV file. This works here via this Load Worklist button. However, this option must first be configured. To do this, we first look at a prepared file. It is a CSV file. In principle, it contains the same data as our spreadsheet. In the first line we have a column header and then the data follows. Each line contains the metadata of a rack position. These are separated from each other by a semicolon. One could imagine that this file has been automatically generated by a laboratory information management system and we want to use it in MikroWin. To do this, we switch back to MikroWin and right-click on the Load Worklist button to open the corresponding context menu. Here we select the Worklist Configuration option to configure the data import. This only needs to be done once before the first import. The directory in which the data files are to be found must first be specified here. We have also selected the CSV file extension and the semicolon as the list separator. Everything fits perfectly. We set the start line to 2, because we have the column header in the first line and we don't want to read it in, so we start with the second line. A column with the identifier, sample ID, is already defined in the preconfiguration. The value for column is already set to 1 here. This is correct for reading our CSV file, as the sample ID is noted in the first column. However, we also want to transfer the test identifier from the data file to our remarks column. So we add a second entry to the list of metadata settings. To do this, we click on the Add icon in List Management. We leave the identifier as it is and set the value of the column to 2, as the test identifier is noted in the second column of our CSV file. The culture settings are generally only important for the transfer of date or numerical values. We have now sufficiently configured the worklist import and can close the dialog with the OK button. By clicking on the Load Worklist button, we can now import the data from the CSV files. In the dialog that now appears, we are presented with a list of the available files. If the list contains many files, we can reduce the list by entering a search term. There is also the option to localize a corresponding file in the entire file system. In our case, however, we only have one file and this is quickly selected. You can now see that the information from the CSV file has been transferred perfectly to both of our columns. This is now an ideal starting point for starting a measurement. We can now do this quickly. All we have to do is press the Start button. We enter an identifier for our measurement. Let us choose M1 as identifier for our new measurement. And then the measurement takes place. The ELISA protocol selected at the beginning uses the virtual reader, which generates a valuable measurement data. So we don't need a real instrument. Once the measurement is complete, we will see our results in the Results section of MikroWin. The selected ELISA protocol does not currently take the output of our metadata into account. But we can quickly adjust this. We now want to display our sample IDs above the measured values. To do this, we switch to the MikroWin protocol area and select the calculation view. Using the Add Step button, we add a step of the reading type and move it to the top position in the list. In the settings for the new step, we enter Sample ID as the identifier and select the Sample ID entry in the Data Selection area. Now we switch back to the Results area and see that another column is displayed with our imported sample IDs. Generally speaking, if the result of the first calculation step of a position in the rack is an empty text, no output is generated for this position. As we have only transferred sample IDs for the sample positions in our example, the control positions are no longer displayed. To correct this, we define an alternative calculation for the controls used in the protocol for the first calculation step with the identifier, sample ID. To do this, we switch back to the MikroWin protocol area and select the Types view. Here we now select the control types POSCON, NEGCON and blank one after the other and enter the formula rack.layout for the first calculation step in the type-specific adaptation of the calculation formulae area. Now we switch back to the results area and see that our output also contains results for the control positions again. So much for our tutorial on metadata. Thank you for listening and good luck with your work with MikroWin.